has a very Western feel to it, where it's like the elder mentor who's a little bit grizzled, and then the younger person who's like all wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and things like that. And I think that setup, the simplicity of it, the fact that there's not a ton of characters going on in this movie, really just helps it to flow.
The visual identity is there. It's not married to the story identity, which was one of my biggest pitfalls with Supergirl here today.
We're talking about Supergirl. It's the newest movie in the DCU, and it comes 1 year after Superman. So I thought a really good place to start this conversation, to ground everybody and to maybe set a caveat, important caveat for our review thoughts, is what did you guys think of Superman? I want to refresh everybody on how you felt about Superman. I'll kick it off, and I'm fine to kick off everything because that's the kind of guy I am.
Oh,
I'm going to take one for the team here.
Please do.
I like Superman a lot. I had it in my top 10 movies of 2025, if you guys remember correctly. So going into this, I was already, I will say, like, my predisposition was that I was excited because I liked Superman. I'm a big fan of James Gunn. I was a big fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. So I went into this one excited. Kirk.
I love Superman. I love the character with all my heart, and I really did love Superman 2025. I think David Corn Sweat is the perfect Superman of this era. I'm not going to pick my favorite one, but I really, really, really enjoyed Superman last year, and I was so excited that this property is the next property in the DCU.
Yes. Stefano.
I also loved the 2025 Superman, and I probably have the least comic book background out of all of us here, and just going into it as honestly, like, I had never really seen much of any Superman. Obviously Superman, everybody knows everything about Superman, but I hadn't seen all the movies. I'd only seen a little bit of the animated series, and I loved it. I thought it was great, and I really like what they did with it. So I was excited to see this because I had high expectations because I really did like that so much.
Okay. So now we got that on the table, cards on the table. And I think you made an important distinction too, Stefano, which is like, you're a self-described, not a very big comic book guy. Yep. I think, not to speak for you, Kirk, you would describe yourself and have described yourself on our YouTube channel and podcast as a huge Superman fan. Mm-hmm. And I would describe myself as a big, not a huge Superman fan per se, but a big DC Comics fan. And I've got the comic. This is the comic Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. The glare is terrible. That this movie is largely based off by Tom King, who's a Eisner Award-winning writer who wrote my favorite comic of all time, by the way, Mr. Miracle. His Mr. Miracle run was awesome. So we come from all different places on the spectrum. Little less into comic books, huge Superman fan, and big comics fan. So let's get into this movie. We're going to start with the first crunch before we go into our takes. So the first crunch is just a brief description of this movie. I'm going to keep it totally spoiler-free. We're going to keep this whole review spoiler-free for you guys. Supergirl, we've got Milly Alcock starring as Kara Zor-El, and she finds herself in the middle of a birthday bendathon on a red planet, like a red sun planet, and she encounters a young woman named Ruthie, who just had a tragic event happen in her life and is now on a revenge tour. Their paths get sort of intertangled, and it sparks a intergalactic mission for revenge, glory, honor, etc. Anything you guys would add?
That's a perfect way to set this up.
That sounds like what we watched.
Perfect. All right.
What if Stefano said, that's not what I watched?
That's not at all correct. Yeah. It'd be like the Dakota Johnson Ellen thing where it's like, no, actually, Ellen, that's not right. Just a live fact check.
You were invited to my party.
That would be good. I would welcome that for what it's worth. Okay. So now we're going to get into takes. Take 1, take 2, take 3, where we get to give a little brief anything that we want to talk about. And I have volunteered to go first, which I don't like doing because I'm self-conscious about how you guys will feel about my thoughts about the movie, but I'm doing it anyway. My take 1 is going to be the story of this movie, the story, and as a function of the story, the characters, because I feel like that's what really anchors this movie, is that it's got this really great emotional core to it where it helps you to be invested. And the story is also a simple story. There's not a ton of inner machinations that you have to understand. Sometimes people worry about with comic book movies that you have to know all this homework. We know that became an issue with the MCU where people were like, I don't want to have studied all this stuff. This is a very simple story. You've got Kara, who's doing her own thing. She comes in contact with somebody who is on a path for revenge. And then she, you know, sort of serendipitously also gets involved with the same bad guy. And so they take off. And it's just like this very classic, like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid type of thing where, or like, I think True Grit, like it has a very Western feel to it where it's like the elder mentor who's a little bit grizzled and then the younger person who's like all wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and things like that. And I think that setup, the simplicity of it, the fact that there's not a ton of characters going on in this movie, really just helps it to flow. And it gives them the time and the care that they need to put into each character's backstory and all of the different things that they've got going on that's powering them forward in the story. And it just helps it gel really well. There's not like there's clear lanes for each character too, and there's clear areas where those lanes intersect, but it's just good storytelling. And I think that's what helps this movie a lot.
Beautiful. Stefano, you want to go second or third here? Or sneckant is the word I said.
Sure, no.
Sneckant or
no,
third?
I'll go third because you gave your Superman opinion second. So
Okay, sweet.
Okay, yeah, we'll just stay in that order.
You know, I love to come in hot with the acting, and I gotta go give this all to Milly Alcock. That's right, our Australian queen, Supergirl herself. I'm just gonna call this right now. I think that Milly might be the next Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh,
Just
okay, go on.
I want that to marinate for a second. She will be the next Jennifer Lawrence. She is a seemingly contemporary actress, with a deep emotional well. The first time I saw her was in this little Netflix miniseries called Sirens, where she's playing this girl who's like this nanny, but she's not a nanny, but she's like this organizer, this assistant to this billionaire lady, and she has to keep it all together. And so she is the good in this world. And then here we see her in Supergirl being the good of this world. So I love the heart of her character, but she's also so good at being so complex, giving you contemporary vibes, but giving you traditional looks, traditional tropes of acting skills. So at any moment you can look at her and you know exactly what she's feeling. She's got great big eyes that are moving at 1,000 miles per hour just to cut straight to your heart or to make you laugh. I mean, she knows where to pivot and where to make things unconventional that most actors do things conventionally. They'll pick the easy choice, but she flips it on its head a little bit. So I really, really enjoyed her performance in this, and I think she's going to be just an absolute star going forward.
Yeah. I see.
You have thoughts on this stuff now?
Yeah,
I want to let you talk.
No, yeah, I see what you mean, Kirk. Because like sometimes it's hard to, when you see an actor in this type of movie, or like you saw Jennifer Lawrence in a Hunger Games series, it's very hard to picture them, a typical actor outside of that type of like hyper fantastical setting. But with Jennifer Lawrence and with Alcock here, like you can see that they're capable of doing so much more. And it's not jarring to see them in different settings. I know there are some actors that I'll like see them in just musicals, but then I'm like, how is this person going to pull off like a normal acting role? A specific actor comes to mind. I'm not going to name names, but no, I totally see what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. Like I thought it was a rocky start for her in this movie.
I agree.
And I think part of that is a function of, and Kirk, you talk about this a lot, like it's hard to play drunk. And I think and she's drunk for the first long period of time in this movie, which it is. It's just objectively, it is hard to do it. And even good actors struggle with it. I think it's also hard when there's no baseline established on which to build the drunk persona. Mm-hmm. So you're like, how much of this is like her, under the influence, and how much of this is like her actual personality? I felt like it was a little rocky at the beginning, but I felt like she settled into it really well. And I think that there are so many layers to this. And I think you're totally right. The emotional well, because this character, Kara, what makes her so appealing and makes her not one-dimensional in the way that she appears early on in this movie is her backstory and everything that they go into. And those scenes where they're kind of like delving into that. And then the aftermath of like, once you know what's going on with her, it just works really well. Mm-hmm. She's great. Awesome. Stefano, take one.
All right, let's go negative, man. I don't know. I just like, one of the reasons, like I wasn't always bought into so many of like the mid 2010s Marvel films and things like that was because of the weakness of so many of the villains.
Mhm.
And that just, you know, came right back to the front of my mind watching this movie because I thought we had just a completely nothing of a villain with just like zero motivation and just there as a catalyst for just like the plot and to go from point A to point B. And it's just like, I think, you know, the villain like was designed pretty well and it was acted well, but it was just kind of just felt like a larger henchman. And it really stuck with me because I just felt like the stakes weren't as high as they could have been because we just have this kind of this lame heavy. And I was like, just like give me something more. It just like made me think about like Iron Man, what was it, Iron Man 2, and I don't know, I was
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
giving me flashbacks to those kinds of movies, and I was a bit bummed by that. I wish we had something cooler. And I'm sure like the comic, I don't know if Krem is the main villain in the same story in that, and if it is, obviously there's not much you can do, but maybe it's just an issue I would have had with the story regardless.
He is in the comic. I don't know. I agree though, but like like a comic book, the medium of a comic versus a movie is so different because comics, especially in this like more modern, like the kind of comics that Tom King writes, where it's like an 8 comic series and they're kind of meant to be one self-contained story. It's so much more of a character study that like the rest of the villain and all that kind of stuff is so secondary that it doesn't matter as much in that format.
Sure.
But I feel like I agree with you, and I do feel like this villain is a weak villain. And I'm glad you said well acted, well designed, because I felt that too. I was like very relieved that like when he first shows up, I was like, okay, the character design here is actually pretty good. And you know, the acting, I like the performance. It was menacing. It was good overall. But I do agree with you that for some reason in this cinematic medium, it doesn't feel big enough to suit the story and to make you feel. I feel like it puts a ceiling on this movie in terms of how much you can feel the stakes.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Weak villain for sure. It goes back to, you know, you talking about this being kind of somewhat of a Western. And he is just your black hat bad guy. That's all he is. And when you have so many other moving parts with emotional turmoil happening on your protagonist side, you got to have a stronger motive than just like, yeah, I'm a bad dude. I just do what I want when I want to. That part suffers the story.
Yeah, totally. Okay, my take 2, as I'm kicking off that round of takes. I wouldn't. So I'm trying to get into the point with these takes where it doesn't necessarily feel like this is a positive take or this is a negative take. 100%. It's just kind of like, it's not in that dichotomy. And this is one of those, which is the degree to which this felt like a James Gunn movie. I don't know that it surprised me per se, because as soon as you see the trailer for this movie, you're like, that's a James Gunn movie. But it is directed by Craig Gillespie. It's written by Anna Noguera. And it's so, I mean, James Gunn's name is just executive producer on this, but I mean, like, tell me this is not Guardians of the Galaxy. Tell me this is not like one of his movies. It, like, all the character designs, all the color palette, which I actually really like the color palette of this movie. I feel like it's got a good color grade. It's got a good visual ID, but it's very, very James Gunn. And I am slightly like, it makes me curious about like what the future of the DCU will be. Like, will there be a variety of textures and visual IDs and things like that? Or is it going to be like pretty across the board? Like, this is the style and we're sticking with it. I don't know. And I don't necessarily know how I feel about that. I did feel like there's a ton of aliens they throw at you in this movie. Tons. You're in space the entire time. And it's just like a very alien heavy movie. I think their hit rate was like 50, 60, 40 on the designs of those aliens. There's some that you're like, oh my gosh. I felt like early in the movie, like space pirates who robbed that ship. Very bad. I just felt like that was very bad. Yeah. And there's a few where you're like, wow, glad we've got lots of practical going on here, but also like, this looks very 80s, like Labyrinth, Henson creature type of thing, and not in a good way.
Not in a charming way. No.
Not in a charming way, right?
No.
So yeah, I was just, if you don't like James Gunn, I think there's very little chance you like this movie. If you like James Gunn, I think you'll be fine.
I think like, and there's like, it has the needle drops, like so many needle drops.
So many needle
and the hit
drops.
rate on those is also like 40, 60, 50, 50.
There's some
And
nauseating needle drops in this one, particularly the final.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the final one, but there's one at the
I
action climax.
Sure.
and I referenced that. I was talking to my friend that we went to see it with. I was like referencing that meme where it was like, "Oh, what have you done to my boy?" or whatever.
Yeah, look how they massacred
Look how
my
they
boy
massacred my boy.
from the Godfather.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, yeah, there was a lot of needle drops like in the first 25 minutes, and they wouldn't stop. But
Yep.
Yeah, they were quick. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
We got like literally there was one in particular where there was like 10 seconds and then it shifted. I was like, what was the point
Yeah,
of
and then
that?
it went to a whole different soundtrack song.
Yes.
I was like, whoa, that
It-
was weird.
Jarring.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with my take too. That to piggyback off of, it has such a visual identity within the DCU, and what Gillespie is trying to do with to pulling that thread through, but the story identity is not there. So like think of movies like from this year in particular, like Project Hail Mary. The moment that movie starts, you're like, whoa. I know exactly. I don't know what this movie is, but I know that this movie knows what it is. Disclosure Day. It's Spielberg, right? And then I think to Gillespie's previous film, one of my favorites, I, Tonya. That thing opens up on the documentary, mockumentary, and it's just this beautifully shot and just crisp and quick and witty and smart and violent and beautiful, all of it together. And you get that from the first couple of snapshots of the film. The visual identity is there. It's not married to the story identity, which was one of my biggest pitfalls with Supergirl here today. Maybe it was because of the bad villain, but I just couldn't get there. I just wasn't excited the whole way through. It was like rise and fall, like a little bit of a roller coaster, but not always on the right track.
Yeah, I think some of that goes into what Cam was saying with like the first 15 minutes of it being like a drunk Supergirl, and it's like just trying to like get its footing, and it's like, yes, we get it, we understand, and it's just like you're almost having to like you're like almost deducting it like excitement and points from it, and you're trying to like it's trying to win you over again afterwards, which it may eventually, but I see what you're saying with that.
That goes back to how Gunn tends to start movies too, which is like, if you think about like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 specifically, where it's like we've got Groot dancing to Mr. Blue Sky. Like, I think he felt that this movie had to start with Krypto because Krypto was such a scene stealer in Superman, and it's such a like surefire way to get the audience engaged. But I feel like this movie stumbles out of the block hard. And it takes a while for it to dig its way out. Once it digs its way out, I'm in. I'm feeling good with it, but I do feel like it stumbles. And what's crazy is the story, the actual, like, again, back to the comic, starts with a great intro where it's Ruthie and she's like, my father was killed by a criminal named Krim. You know, and it's like you're automatically like, who's this person? Who's this guy? And it's like, that's such a great way to open a story whenever people are going in thinking Supergirl, and you hit them with a different girl who's like, my father was killed by this person. And I'm, you know, like that I wish they had done that. I wish they had just like started the story with a hook instead of kind of like literally stumbling drunkly into the movie.
Yep.
For sure.
I think that's fair. Okay, Stefano, your take two.
All right, I'll take one out of Cam's playbook and just state something vague and give positives and negatives.
Dang.
I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
man.
It's not
Fair,
a dig.
fair.
Let's say fight sequences. I actually had some issues with some of the fight sequences in the middle of the film because they felt very herky-jerky. And I think so much of the world was like pretty brown, and it looked good, but so much of it was brown and dusty, and it needed to be. But I feel like there was like a bunch of quick cuts, is very jerky, and it was hard to tell who was who because they were all wearing kind of similar clothing. And I just felt like so many of those fight sequences could have been better because I wanted longer, like more extended shots of this action. And then in our climax fight sequence, we get that. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like if we would have gotten this fight sequence like 3 more times, this would have been rocking. But we just get it saved for the climax. And I'm sure, you know, it's the climax, so you come to expect that. But I wish that the fighting was more consistently awesome because they showed towards the end that we can get there. And I was just like wishing we had that throughout the film.
Yep. Fair.
Yeah,
The
it's
quick cuts are an issue. The quick cuts are a big issue. And again, I feel like that's another thing that like really plagues the beginning of the movie and kind of smooths out a little bit, but does come back here and there where it's like, ooh, we're cutting too much. And I don't know. It seemed like there was also like some ADR stuff and things going on at the beginning. I don't know if they maybe reworked the beginning at some point along the line, because it definitely felt like disorienting.
Yeah, the quick cuts. I literally in my my inner mind, my inner monologue while the movie was going on, I was like, "Okay, Michael Bay, calm down here," because it was just going too fast. And then to the fight sequences as well, I was like, "Wow, like they really just did not escalate the level of fighting fast enough." Yeah, so that's such a good point right there too.
Yep.
Okay, take 3, last round to get your thoughts in. I'm gonna go really quick. David Corn Sweat is such a great Superman. I mean, he's in this movie very like here and there. And you don't always know like when you're going to get Superman going on, but I can't even express in words how well he slides into that character and how easy it is for him. He has a couple scenes where you're just like, thank goodness. like thank goodness you're here. You give such a life to this world and such a like believability and authenticity and buy into it. He's spectacular in that role, and I think he's just a really good actor in general, but that role really suits him. And every time that he popped up in this movie, it served the film for the better, in my opinion.
I agree. I'm like, oh, take me to one of his movies.
Yeah I mean, it's fair.
I agree. He's quite good. And yeah, I loved it. I love the connection, like how they're able to weave him in, and he is a breath of fresh air. I love him.
He's perfect. He is the perfect male specimen.
I always have to take it one step further.
I also could appreciate how he wasn't intentionally show stopping the movie.
No.
You could tell that he was restricted a little bit in order to make Milly shine, in order to make Supergirl Kara shine. That was very noticeable in every single one of those few scenes that they have together, that he was like, you have the spotlight, I am building you up, this is your movie. And you could tell that in the performance, and that's also admirable.
Yep,
for sure.
Is that your take 2? No, I'm just joking.
Nope.
Take 3.
I have a problem with the editing. I have a problem with the edit of the story. So I feel like the story could be stronger, and you could almost make the villain seem a little bit more daunting if you place him at the if you rework some of so there's flashbacks. They use a lot of flashbacks to tell about, obviously Kara's time with her experience with Krypton exploding, and there are ways that you could have reshaped this for the emotional spikes in the story to make it more of a bite every time that we revealed something about her past and what she's going through now and what Krem is doing and what Ruthie is going through. I didn't really care much for Ruthie in this whole film, to be perfectly honest with you, except upon our initial meeting with her. After that, I was like, give me more Kara. And the other story elements and how they deliver that, those were exciting to me, but I just wish they restructured it a little bit more, given us those flashbacks in a different layout, a different sequencing. So that's my take on editing.
Yeah, Stefano, do you share the thought on Ruthie? What's your take on that character? Unless that's your take 3.
No, it's not my take 3. I think I have conflicting thoughts on it, because I thought a lot of what Ruthie character was bringing was actually like more compelling.
Yeah.
But I also have this issue with like, which kind of goes into my take 3. So we can do that, but you can give your thought on
I was just saying, I was vibing with Ruthie's character in general. So I think I had a different experience than you, but I think too, man, like I have to check myself, because I have like, with having read the comic and enjoying it, not to be that guy. I hate being that guy every time, being like, I read the book. It's like, I have, like it or not, like I have preconceived feelings about these characters. I just do. And so that's hard. I have a hard time sussing that out, but it's like, I felt like I liked where all 3 of the main characters fell on the spectrum of what they were trying to do with this story, where you've got like Ruthie is like the full innocent good, kind of, who's been wronged by the world. And then you've got Lobo, who's just like chaos. And then somewhere in the middle, you've got Kara.
Sure.
I liked how all that played together, but I do, the one problem I do have with Ruthie is just like, exactly where that story is going from beat 1.
Yeah.
Like immediately. And so I think it probably would be hard to engage with it in a way that's like not I'm done with this character. I know, like I know where your arc is going, and therefore I am no longer interested in it. I think that makes sense.
For what it's worth, our friend that we went with, Mitch, had the same thought on Ruthie of like it just felt he didn't really like the character that much and thought it kind of brought it down a bit. So
okay,
that's from a complete insider standpoint or whatever.
Yep, I like it.
All right, my take 3 feels like complex kind of, but it kind of, I know Cam is famous for the Surf Dracula reference when talking to Mario. And I feel like that happens here. And I don't know how many like standalone Supergirl movies we're going to get, but I get a bit exhausted with like the whole, like Supergirl and Superman are like the most overpowered superheroes there are. And what I love so much about the Superman film is that it throws you in, Superman is, let's get going. It's amazing. And I feel like with this, we just have that scenario where like you have a powerful superhero who gets, nerfed, who is like becomes not powerful for like a very obvious reason. She gets weighed down by this Ruthie character who I do like, but it's just like her problem becomes her problem. So it's like brings her down to earth. And then we get, the climax later. And it's like, I wanted just more of that good stuff that I feel like I got in the last 10 minutes throughout. But I know that's a completely different story. So maybe it's just not the story I wanted for this movie. And maybe that's my issue, but I wish it would have had some more Supergirl action rather than, the buildup we know is inevitable. Like we know where it's all going. We know where Ruthie's going, It just felt like the stakes weren't quite there for me.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. All right. Let's move into final thoughts and scores. I'll kick it off. I am sensing that I am probably on the higher end of this group with in terms of how I feel about this movie, and that's totally fine. I think for me, this is definitely well, let me take a step back. This is the second installment in the DCU. So this is kind of a big deal. It makes a lot of sense. You start with Superman. If you knock that out of the park, you've got good footing. I think we were all feeling good about where things were going after that. There's been some cool projects announced like Clayface and Batman Brave and the Bold and all that stuff. This, I feel like, leaves me like this felt rockier, and this feels like a lot rockier than Superman and more formulaic and more like the Marvel formula in general, and just kind of like what it feels like a more standard superhero fare to me. And that's a bummer for me, even though I liked this movie and I like the characters and I like the foundation that we get for Milly Alcock's Kara Zor-El, and I like the future that sets up for her in future installments. But if we're talking about this as a standalone film, it's certainly rough around the edges. And I think that for the people who want to go into it and pick it apart, which is certainly not what you guys are doing for what it's worth, but there will be people, we all know, there will be people.
They're coming
who will want to tear this apart, and they'll have plenty of material with which to do so. And people who like the movie won't even be able to be like, you're wrong, because there's stuff in it that like is very pick apartable, to be honest. But even with those rough patches, I really like this. I think the story was good. I think the characters are good. Totally hear and think your guys' complaints with it are valid. And I don't think this is a superb movie. I don't think this is a great movie even, but I do think it's a good movie. And I think it's one that if you come into it having enjoyed James Gunn movies and having enjoyed much of the MCU and just like traditional superhero fare, I think you're going to have no problems with this movie. And I think you're going to like it. But if you come into it expecting something different, something that feels like more than standard superhero fare, I don't think you're going to find that. So I'm giving it a straight up 7.0.
Okay.
Yeah, right down the middle, kind of.
It's middle would be 5.0, Cam.
I just think in my head, I think of a 7.0 as the middle for some reason.
Okay, cool.
I don't know why.
That's fine. That's true.
We won't talk about our own scales.
7.0 will tear apart our scales here in a moment. I can't talk about how much I can't actually how Milly Alcock is just so she's going to be such a big impact. I just know that's not just me wanting her to join us on the podcast sometime, but if she hears this, you're welcome.
It's good to lay the groundwork for that, though.
Yeah. I loved her relationships that she had with individual people, not with Ruthie, but actually, I take it back.
Come on.
I don't like Ruthie, but I liked how Milly Alcock related to Ruthie. I liked how she approached that. I loved how she approached David Cornsweet with Superman. So that sets up the perfect Man of Tomorrow future with them. I even loved her relationship with her father, David Krumholtz.
Shout out.
Just so good. He's so good in everything he does.
I was so shocked. I didn't not realize he was in. I was like, what in the world's happening? But he was great.
That's right. He pops up in stuff. Oppenheimer. Killing
The studio.
Killing Lucy in ER many years ago. He's fantastic. So I love all the relationships that she built with each of those characters more than I love the story of this film. But it doesn't rest on that alone, unfortunately. But it's a good ride regardless. It's fun to see Supergirl flying around. It's much better than the original Supergirl film. If you have a chance, go watch that and laugh at it. It's really abysmal, unfortunately. This is quite the step up. A great second piece to the DCU as a standalone. 6.4 out of 10.
All right, Stefano.
All right. One thing, last thing I'll say about Ruthie is I was comparing. So I think the performance was good.
Yeah, I agree.
And I was trying to compare it to another movie that had this weighing down side person, and I thought of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness,
Oof.
and that had just the most awful side character with the America Chavez character, and
that was rough.
no digs at the actual character, but just the way that it was written in the movie made it terrible. And I was like, you know what, Ruthie this character is better than that. Anyway, everything I said still stands for this movie. I think what I didn't really get to, it was going to be a take, but it was too short and lazy. The movie's just too quippy for my taste. I know we don't want these movies to take themselves too seriously. We got some movies that took themselves too seriously in DC before that weren't great, and we don't want that again. But
that's the clip we open with for the Snyder fans.
The first 25 minutes when she's drunk, and there's just too many quips, and it just I was like, great. Anyway, with all that being said, I'm at a 6.0 on this one.
Okay, we were actually in a safe range there. I was wondering if you guys were going to go nuclear, but no. Great.
I was really quiet on the car ride home, so I don't know if you picked that vibe.
Well, no, I appreciated that you were quiet on the car ride home because it's so hard. I don't want to complain about it, but it's it is difficult for us to hide how we feel about these movies, and sometimes we just don't because it's impossible. We're all sitting around after the movie talking about it, but I want so badly to have my thoughts and know that my thoughts are my own and not be poisoned by not poisoned, but felt I want to make sure that whenever I review a movie, it really is my opinion. So I did appreciate your silence.
When I came home, I was talking to my wife, and I was like, man, I'm gonna be the only one that didn't really love this movie, and I know Kirk's gonna probably love it so much, and I want to. And here we are. You never know, right?
You never know, and that's the beauty of it. So Supergirl releases this weekend. The review embargo's up on Wednesday. I'm so curious to know what the the Rotten Tomatoes, the mass score on this, more so than I have been about other recent movies.
Yeah,
where it's for example, Disclosure Day, I knew that was going to skew highly positive in general because that's a crowd pleasing type of movie. Even Superman as a direct comp, that was so obviously going to be well liked by the mass, critic masses. I don't know about this one. I think there's a possibility that it's too weird for some people. I don't know. I
do appreciate, like you said earlier, you don't need to do homework to watch this, and that's so refreshing. It's approachable in that sense, so maybe that'll help.
Yeah, Cam's mom came with us, and she didn't even see the Superman 2025, and she walked out very pleased with it.
Yeah, both my parents really loved it. So,
shout out Cam's mom and dad,
who paid for snacks.
That's
always good.
They didn't even sit next to Cam.
No, we won't get into that.
I wedged myself between them.
Kirk is the replacement, the prodigal son.
Yeah, right.
Thank you guys so much for watching this. If you see Supergirl, like I said, it comes out this weekend. This review should drop on Wednesday, which is when the review embargo lifts, and we get to find out what other critics thought about it, which I'm anxiously awaiting. But once you do get to see it, let us know your thoughts. If you have thoughts just based on the trailer or questions or anything like that, be sure to hit us up either in the comments or on our Discord or whatever. But we thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Talk to you soon.